The 28th floor of Aurelia 28 shimmered like a glass lantern above Seattle's night. Down below, the bay folded into the dark like a sheet of ink, scattered with the tiny gold reflections of fairy lights drifting toward the islands. Inside the restaurant, everything felt deliberate. Muted jazz, polished brass, the faint perfume of truffle oil and cedar-smoked salmon drifting through the air. But to Maya Delgado, none of that luxury mattered. All she felt was the tight pulse in her shoulder. 14 hours into her shift, the pain had settled there like a stone, heavy, stubborn, reminding her of everything she didn't have the privilege to slow down for. She rolled her shoulder once as she carried a tray of crystal glasses through the aisle, hoping the motion looked natural. The last thing she needed was Greg, her manager, noticing she was hurting. He didn't tolerate weakness, especially not on busy nights, especially not tonight. She set the glasses down at the service station and exhaled, steadying her breath. Her reflection in the brass paneling stared back at her. Dark eyes, tied hair, the faintest shadow of exhaustion smudged beneath each eye. But she forced a smile, a professional one, a smile meant to reassure customers that everything in their world was perfect, even when hers felt like a structure made of overdue bills and good intentions. In the quiet of her mind, a single thought rose like a whisper. All this schooling, all this debt, for this? 2 years in UCLA's graduate program, a thesis on the socio-linguistic patterns of Levantine dialects, dozens of late nights, thick textbooks, hope that knowledge could carve out a better life. And now she was here, carrying plates worth more than her weekly groceries. Delgado, Greg's voice shot through the air like a command. She turned. Yes, sir? VIP table 12 is asking for water. Their service starts now. Don't keep them waiting. Her heart dipped. Table 12, the one with the skyline view, the one always reserved for people who could afford to speak loudly and expect the world to catch their words mid-air. Greg smoothed down his tie. And remember who's sitting there tonight, as if she could forget. Adrian Locke, founder of Locke Dynamics, tech magnate, investor. A man known in business circles for being brilliant, impatient, and obsessively precise. Rumor said that he once had an entire flight delayed because a glass on board had a fingerprint on it. Maya swallowed. Yes, sir. She took the silver pitcher from the counter. The metal was icy cold against her palm, and condensation slicked the handle. Her shoulder throbbed as she lifted it. Just breathe, she told herself. The door to the VIP wing was tall, dark oak. She pushed it open, stepping into a quieter world, one where conversations drifted like low murmurs and the clink of silverware felt almost ceremonial. A long window stretched across the room, framing Seattle's skyline, and at the center table sat the man she had been warned about. Adrian Locke didn't look up as she approached. He was angled slightly toward a folder of documents on the table, speaking in a low voice to his associate, a tall man with sandy hair and a calm, observant posture. That had to be Liam Reed, his COO. Adrian wore a charcoal suit that fit him like armor, the fabric sharp against the cool light from the window. His expression, stern, focused, unreadable, seemed carved from stone. Maya inhaled, then stepped forward with quiet steps. Good evening, she said softly. May I refresh your water? Adrian didn't acknowledge her, not even a nod. He flicked his fingers once in a gesture that could have meant, go ahead, or you're invisible. She lifted the pitcher. The liquid glimmered as it poured, steady and smooth, until a tiny piece of ice clinging stubbornly to the rim inside the pitcher broke free. It dropped into the glass with the faintest tap. A tiny sound, a baby sound, a noise so insignificant it should have disappeared into the hum of the room. But it didn't. A clear droplet leapt from the impact and landed on the black stone tabletop, no larger than a teardrop. Just one drop. But sometimes one drop is enough to tip an entire balance. Adrian stopped mid-sentence. For a moment, the air itself seemed to freeze. Liam looked up, eyes shifting between Maya and his boss. Adrian's gaze lowered to the droplet. He stared at it with unsettling precision, as if examining a flaw in a machine only he could detect. 1 second, 2, 3. Then he slowly lifted his eyes to Maya. For a heartbeat, she forgot to breathe. His expression wasn't anger. Anger she could have handled. Anger was human. This was colder, measured, dismissive, like she was a malfunction in an otherwise flawless system. She opened her mouth to apologize when the door burst open. Maya, what happened? Greg rushed in, voice slipping into panic as he looked between her and Adrian. Greg bowed his head. "Mr. Locke, my deepest apologies. Is there a problem?" Adrian didn't speak. He didn't need to. His silence did the work for him. Greg turned to Maya, already trembling with urgency. "What did you do?" There was just what?" Greg hissed. "What did you spill?" "It was a drop," she said softly. "A single drop." Greg blanched as though she'd confessed to upending the entire pitcher. He grabbed the edge of his handkerchief, dabbing frantically at the tiny bead of water. "Mr. Locke, we deeply apologize. This will not happen again." Maya clenched her hands behind her apron, the pain in her shoulder forgotten beneath the sting building in her chest. Why did a droplet feel like a verdict? Adrian finally spoke. One sentence, low, sharp, delivered in a tone that made every hair on Maya's arms rise. "I expect attention to detail." Then he returned his eyes to his documents. Greg turned on her. "Outside, now." Maya swallowed, heat rushing up her neck. Shame? Anger? She couldn't tell. Only that something inside her was trembling, smack between fury and heartbreak. She backed away slowly, keeping her face neutral, her steps careful. But before she turned, she caught a glimpse of something unexpected. Adrian wasn't reading anymore. He was watching her. Expression still unreadable, eyes dark, cold. As if she had become an anomaly he didn't know how to categorize. She stepped out of the room, closing the door behind her with a soft click. Inside her chest, a storm began gathering. A storm born from exhaustion, from forgotten potential, from being treated as if she were made of nothing. And that single drop of water, that harmless accidental drop, had just struck the first crack. The moment Maya stepped back into the hallway, Greg Harmon was already on her. His polished shoes clicked sharply against the marble floor as he closed the distance between them, panic sizzling off him like static. "Maya, what did you do?" he hissed, voice tight with dread. "Do you have any idea who that is?" Her throat tightened. "It was a drop, Greg. One drop." "One drop?" He nearly choked on the words. "Maya, that one drop could cost us our entire VIP rating. Mr. Locke is not someone we upset." She pressed her palms against her apron. "I didn't upset him." "You don't know that," Greg sputtered, hair already sticking to his forehead. "He didn't speak. That's worse. When he speaks, we can negotiate. When he doesn't speak," he snapped his fingers. "We get replaced." Maya held his stare, even as her pulse thudded painfully in her ears. She wanted to tell him that she had been careful, that she had worked her body to exhaustion trying to be perfect, that she had given every piece of herself to be here. But Greg wasn't listening. He was already spinning back toward the VIP room, smoothing his blazer with frantic hands before throwing open the door. "Mr. Locke, I cannot apologize enough," Greg said as he hurried in, nearly bowing as he approached the table. "Please trust that this will be handled immediately." Maya stood at the doorframe, invisible but present enough to witness what happened next. Adrian Locke didn't even look at Greg. He simply tilted his head toward Liam, speaking in a quiet tone, calm, clipped, sharp. The words flowed smoothly, carrying the rolling rhythm of a language Maya knew better than English. Arabic, classic Gulf pronunciation, softened with a modern cadence. Beautiful, precise, and tonight, cruel. Adrian's mouth curved slightly as he spoke, though not into anything resembling a smile. It was the expression of a man stating an objective fact with surgical detachment. "He says she's useless," Maya whispered under her breath before she realized she'd moved closer. Greg blinked, not understanding, but Liam reacted, his eyes flicking up, surprised for a fraction of a second. He understood Adrian's tone. Maya recognized that too. Adrian's Arabic flowed out again, this time sharper, almost a hiss hidden under civility. "She's just standing there, Liam," Adrian said in Arabic, "like decoration." The words hit Maya like cold honor dumped straight down her spine. Decoration. That was what her years of study meant to him. Her nights in dusty libraries, her thesis defended in front of 3 professors, her parents' pride when she walked across the graduation stage. Decoration. Adrian continued, his tone dropping lower, private, confident, unfiltered. "She doesn't even know what she's doing. If she can't handle pouring water, how does she handle anything else?" Liam opened his mouth, as if to caution him, but Adrian kept going. Not angrily, not loudly, just carelessly, like she was furniture. Maya stood there, frozen in place, her fingers curling into the fabric of her apron. A familiar heat rose in her chest, the same heat she'd felt when her student loan statement first arrived in the mail, when she realized the only jobs available to her were ones with service in the title, when her professors told her that brilliant wasn't always enough. Her vision flickered. She blinked once hard. Don't cry, she told herself. Not here, not in front of him. Greg, oblivious to the meaning, just kept nodding. Yes, absolutely, Mr. Locke. I assure you, she will face consequences. She knows better. She really does. Maya swallowed down the sting behind her eyes. Consequences, she thought bitterly. For a drop of water, a drop so small it had dried already. Greg turned toward her. Maya, apologize again. She opened her mouth, but before she could speak, Adrian gave a small, dismissive wave with 2 fingers, a gesture so subtle, so effortless, yet it cut deeper than any shouted insult. It meant, she doesn't matter enough for me to hear her apology. Greg stiffened. Maya, step back. I'll talk to you outside. She stepped back mechanically. The hallway swallowed her again, soft ambient music drifting around her like a fog. She leaned her back against the wall, trying to steady herself, but her pulse hammered faster the more she replayed his words in her mind. Decoration? She doesn't know what she's doing. Useless. Funny. She had spent years studying a language most Americans never even attempted. She had spent countless sleepless nights parsing poetry older than the city of Seattle. She had read dialect studies that only a handful of scholars could decode. But to him, she was the girl with the water pitcher. Greg appeared again, wiping his forehead. All right, he snapped. Out with it. What did you hear? Hear what? In there. You know, whatever he said. Maya stared at him, incredulous. You mean in Arabic? Greg blinked. Was that Arabic? Well, whatever. I assume you didn't understand. She let out a quiet, humorless breath. Actually, I did. Greg blinked twice, confused before brushing it off. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you made an impression. A bad one. A laugh almost escaped her lips. Soft, disbelieving, exhausted. Yes, she'd made an impression. But not because she'd failed. Because someone else had decided that her worth was measured in silence. Greg crossed his arms. You want to keep your job? She nodded faintly. Then stay invisible. Don't provoke anyone. Don't respond. Don't interrupt. And don't, under any circumstance, let Mr. Locke think you're standing around doing nothing. Invisible. There it was again. The expectation. Disappear. Be quiet. Pretend you don't know more than you're allowed to. Maya stood still as Greg walked away, leaving her alone in the hallway. She let herself close her eyes for a moment, just long enough to catch the echo of Adrian's voice in her memory. Smooth, precise, confident. His Arabic was technically correct, well-practiced, perhaps even expensive to acquire. But hers was lived, studied, earned, and he had no idea, not yet. She pressed her fingertips to her temple, breathing slowly. She didn't know what would happen next. She didn't know why one stranger's dismissive words hurt more than the sting in her shoulder. But something inside, her, the part that still remembered the weight of her thesis pages and the pride in her professor's eyes, refused to vanish. Not tonight, not anymore. A small voice arose inside her, sharper than the fear, clearer than the hurt. He thinks you're invisible because he can't see past his own certainty. Maya opened her eyes. The storm inside her shifted. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was resolve. Greg's hand clamped around Maya's elbow before she even had a chance to breathe. His grip was tight, urgent, the kind that said he wasn't thinking about her, only about the trouble he believed she'd caused. Out, he muttered through clenched teeth. Now. She stumbled a step as he dragged her down the hallway, away from the VIP room's glass glow. Her shoulder flared with pain, but Greg didn't notice, or didn't care. Greg, I didn't do anything, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. A drop, Maya, he snapped, wheeling around on her. A drop in front of him is a disaster. You don't understand how these people work. These people, she echoed. Greg ran a hand through his hair. Do you want the truth? People like Adrian Locke expect perfection. They expect the staff to operate like air, necessary but unnoticed. And you. He gestured helplessly. You made yourself noticeable. She stared at him, throat tightening. I didn't try to. It doesn't matter, Greg breathed. Mr. Locke noticed, so we fix it. You take responsibility, I document the warning, and then you leave quietly for the night. That's how we protect the restaurant. She blinked. You're firing me over one drop of water? He hesitated, just long enough to tell her the answer was yes. "Let's call it a temporary removal," he said. "We'll reevaluate after I speak with corporate." A cold, hollow ache filled her chest. It wasn't just the injustice. It was the familiarity of it, the sinking feeling she'd had after every rejection email, every "we regret to inform you," every conversation where someone looked at her and saw something smaller than she was. "Fine," Maya whispered, "if that's what you think is fair." "It's what's necessary," Greg corrected. "Now, follow me. Don't make this worse." He turned toward the kitchen corridor. Maya didn't move. Her feet felt rooted to the floor. Something inside her, something deep, heavy, long suppressed, pressed upward like it had finally run out of patience. The words had been rising since the moment Adrian's voice cut into her like a cold blade. Decoration. Useless. Standing there. She wasn't invisible. She wasn't furniture. She wasn't decoration. Not tonight. "Maya," Greg barked. "Did you hear me? Let's go." She inhaled. A long, steady breath. One that spread through her chest like the beginning of a storm. "No," she said softly. The hallway fell silent. Greg blinked. "What did you say?" "No," she repeated. And then, without another thought, she turned around. Her heart hammered. Her palms prickled. She felt the weight of every choice she was about to make, but she walked, back toward the VIP room, back toward the man who had spoken about her, as though she couldn't understand him, as though she didn't exist. Greg hurried after her, face draining of color. "Maya, don't you dare go back in there." She pushed the door open. The room quieted instantly. Adrian and Liam were mid-discussion and over a contract binder, but they both looked up when she stepped back inside. Greg slipped in behind her, breathless, whispering, "Maya, don't do this. Please." She ignored him, her eyes locked on Adrian Locke, the man whose cold words had sliced through her like glass. He didn't speak, but his brows lowered slightly, a silent warning. Maya stepped forward anyway. "Mr. Locke," she said, voice low. Liam straightened in his chair, sensing a shift in the air. Greg grabbed her sleeve. "Maya, enough!" She pulled her arm free. Silence clung to the room like static. And then she spoke, not in English, not in the soft, service voice she used for customers, but in precise, sharp, impeccably authentic Arabic. The same dialect Adrian had used, but with the tone of someone who had lived inside the language, not purchased it through tutors. "Your assumptions are misplaced," she said in flawless Gulf Arabic, "and your words were heard." The reaction was instant. Liam's eyes widened, stunned. Shock broke across his features like a crack of lightning. He turned toward Adrian, searching his expression as if trying to confirm he had understood what she'd said. He had. Adrian froze. Truly froze, his shoulders locked, his fingers stilled midair above the page. His eyes, dark, severe, always calculating, lifted to her in a slow motion that felt like a shift in gravity itself. He had expected obedience, silence, deference. Not this, never this. Maya felt her pulse beat in her throat, but she kept going, her voice steady and pure. "You called me useless," she continued, still in Arabic. "You said I was merely standing here, like decoration." Adrian inhaled sharply, barely, but it was enough to show she had struck the steel beneath the armor. "And," she added, "you believed I would never understand you." Greg made a choking sound behind her. "Maya, what language is—" She raised a hand to silence him, and spoke again, her words braided with years of study, discipline, and dignity. "I earned my degree in this language," she said. "I have spent more time with its poetry, its grammar, its rhythm, than I have spent sleeping in the last 5 years." She stepped closer to the table, not threatening, not timid, but resolute. "So, yes," she finished quietly, "I understood everything." Adrian's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. Couldn't. Liam leaned forward slightly, lips parted in awe. He had heard Arabic spoken at conferences, by advisors, by scholars, but Maya's command of it was different, clean, musical, rooted, not learned for business, but woven into her life. She wasn't mimicking the dialect, she owned it. The room held its silence like a held breath. Maya waited. She wasn't sure for what. An acknowledgement? An apology? A dismissal? But all she received was the sharp flicker of something unfamiliar in Adrian's eyes. Not anger, not embarrassment. something more dangerous, recognition, like he was seeing her as a person for the first time. Liam cleared his throat softly. "Mr. Locke, did you know she spoke Arabic?" Adrian didn't answer him. His attention never left her. Maya felt her heart pounding, the adrenaline building behind her ribs. She wasn't supposed to talk back. She wasn't supposed to reveal what she knew. She wasn't supposed to break the silent hierarchy that kept people like her in the dark corners of rooms like this. But tonight, she had stopped caring about the supposed to. Adrian finally spoke, his voice lower than before, restrained, almost unsure. "You understood all of it," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Maya replied. Another beat of silence. Then Liam murmured it in English, as if to no one but himself. "That was extraordinary." Greg looked from face to face, panicked, as if the floor might open beneath him. "Maya, I told you to leave. What you're doing is completely unacceptable." She didn't look at Greg. Her eyes were still on Adrian, waiting for whatever came next, whatever shift this moment would unlock. And for the first time that night, he didn't look like the man who dismissed her. He looked like someone who had just realized he had underestimated the wrong person. Greg's voice was the first thing that cut through the thick silence after Maya's stunning confrontation. Not awe, not respect, not even confusion, just fear. "Maya," he hissed, stepping between her and the VIP table like he could undo what she had just said. "What in the world was that?" She didn't answer. Her gaze was still locked with Adrian's, the echoes of her own words humming inside her chest like a drum too loud to silence. Greg grabbed her arm again, not as harsh as before, but filled with frantic urgency. "Outside, now! You've crossed the line." She followed him this time, but only because she had nothing else left to say in that room. Once the door closed, Greg spun on her. "I can't believe you," he sputtered. "You don't get to talk to customers like that, especially not someone like him." "He insulted me," Maya said quietly. "You didn't hear him." "I don't need to hear him," Greg snapped. "He's a client, and you," he gestured at her uniform. "Your staff. This is not complicated." Maya stared at him, stomach sinking. Greg took a deep breath, lowered his tone, and delivered the blow. "You're done here, Maya." He smoothed his shirt with trembling hands. "You're not the right fit for a professional environment." The words hit harder than she expected, like a heavy door closing, like the faint echo of every other rejection she'd heard in the past 2 years, bundled together into one sentence. She swallowed. "You're firing me because I spoke up." "I'm firing you," Greg said, "because you embarrassed the restaurant, you embarrassed me, and you embarrassed a client who could bury us with a single phone call." She breathed in sharply. "So, that's it?" "That's it," Greg said. "Hand over your apron and leave through the back. I'll send your final check in the mail." Her throat tightened. "You won't even ask what he said? You won't even consider?" "No," he cut her off. "I won't." A bitter, fragile laugh escaped her lips, quiet and broken. Right. Of course he wouldn't. She walked past him, down the narrow service hallway, past the storage closet that always smelled faintly like lemon cleaner and wilted flowers, toward the metal door marked "Staff Exit." She untied her apron slowly, fingers trembling, folded it once, twice, 3 times until it was a neat square of black cloth. She set it gently on top of the crate of sparkling water bottles, like a final offering to the life she was being forced to leave. Greg didn't say goodbye. He didn't even watch her go. The steel door swung open, and cold night air rushed in. Sharp, wet, honest. Seattle rain greeted her like a baptism she hadn't asked for. The first step out the door soaked her shoes instantly, thin soles absorbing the water like sponges. The second step sent a shiver through her. By the time she reached the end of the alley, the rain was falling. Harder, soaking into her hair, the cuffs of her shirt, the denim of her cheap jeans. She didn't run, she didn't scream, she walked. 1 foot in front of the other through the rain, letting it wash down her face until she couldn't tell where the rain stopped and her tears began. By the time she got home, she was trembling. Her apartment door stuck again, the wood swelling with the damp, the frame crooked from years of disrepair. She shoved it open with her shoulder, stepped inside, and shut the world out behind her. Her home was quiet, too quiet, a basement-level studio cramped with secondhand furniture, the window barely above ground level. People's shoes passed by outside whenever someone walked down the sidewalk, shadows moving like ghosts across the cheap curtains. She changed into dry clothes and pulled her laptop onto her knees. There was nothing else to do, nothing to fight, nothing to hold on to. So, she began applying for jobs: administrative assistant, front desk receptionist, bilingual tutor, community center coordinator, freelance translator, even though the postings all demanded 7 years experience. She didn't have years, she had degrees, she had knowledge, she had potential. But none of those things paid rent. She submitted her resume again and again until the edges of her vision blurred. She drank water, she resubmitted, she rewrote her cover letter 5 times. She searched job boards until she saw double. Hours passed. No calls, no messages, nothing. Then, her inbox pinged. One new email. She clicked it. "Thank you for your application. While your qualifications are impressive, we have chosen to pursue candidates whose experience more closely aligns with our current needs." Maya shut her eyes. She clicked refresh. Another email appeared. Same message. Another. Same rejection. It kept happening, like the universe had set all its automated systems to destroy her hope in synchronized rhythm. She pressed her palms to her eyes as the tears finally came. Quiet, hot, unstoppable. "This wasn't supposed to be my life," she whispered to the empty room. The rain tapped softly against the window. Somewhere outside, a car splashed through a puddle. A neighbor's dog barked once. Her bank app sat open beside the browser tabs, overflowing with job listings. Balance, $48.60. Enough for maybe 3 days of meals. Not enough for rent. Not enough for the looming student loan payment due next week. Not enough for anything except survival until the next thin paycheck. And now, there would be no paycheck. Maya leaned back against the wall, laptop still glowing in her lap, tears trailing down her cheeks. This was her darkest moment, not because she had lost her job, but because the moment she finally stood up for herself. The world had pushed her back down, hard. She curled her knees into her chest and let the quiet continue. She didn't know what would happen tomorrow, or next week, or how she would pay anything at all. But somewhere deep under the panic, beneath the bruised pride, beneath the exhaustion, there still flickered a tiny spark. Not hope, not yet. Just the memory of her own voice, speaking truth in a language she had earned with sweat and study and sacrifice. A reminder that she wasn't decoration. She wasn't useless, and she wasn't done. Not yet. Maya slept poorly that night, if she slept at all. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the reflection of Adrian Locke's cold stare in the polished surface of the VIP table. Every rejection email echoed behind her eyelids like a whisper she couldn't escape. By morning, the rain had softened into a gray curtain outside her window, blurring the world into shapes she couldn't quite name. She sat on the edge of her bed, blanket wrapped around her shoulders, staring at her phone screen. No new messages, no missed opportunities, nothing. She sighed, tossed the phone aside, and opened her laptop again. More job boards, more desperation, more silence. At 2 p.m., her phone vibrated. She jumped. An unknown number flashed across the screen. Not a telemarketer. Those showed up with different formatting, not a local delivery service either. Her heartbeat spiked. She hesitated, then answered. No one spoke. The call clicked off. A second later, her phone buzzed with a voicemail notification. Her throat tightened as she hit play. A crisp female voice came through the speaker. Calm, professional, unmistakably trained in a corporate environment where every syllable carried purpose. "Good afternoon, Ms. Delgado. My name is Clara Shaw. I'm the executive assistant to Mr. Adrian Locke." Maya froze. The voice continued, smooth as glass. "Mr. Locke has requested to meet with you privately. Our driver will arrive at your address in 10 minutes. Please be prepared." The message ended. For a long moment, Maya couldn't breathe. Adrian Locke. He wanted to meet her. Alone. Today. Her mind raced. Was he going to sue her? Claim emotional distress? Demand money she didn't have? Report her to other restaurants so she'd never get hired again? A cold panic unfurled through her chest, tighter and tighter with every passing second. "No," she whispered. "No, this can't be happening." She set the phone down like it might burn her and pressed both palms to her forehead. She had spoken back to a billionaire in his own second language. She had thrown his words in his face. She had embarrassed him in front of his COO. Men like Adrian Locke didn't forget that, and they definitely didn't forgive easily. Her phone buzzed again, a text message this time. "Your driver has arrived. Please step outside." Her pulse slammed into overdrive. Maya ran to the window, pulling aside the curtain. Parked at the curb was a sleek black SUV, far too expensive for her neighborhood. No taxi sign, no rideshare sticker, just tinted windows and a driver in a tailored black coat standing beside the vehicle, waiting for her. She stepped back from the window, heart pounding against her ribs. "Okay," she whispered shakily. Think. Could she refuse to go? Not safely. Ignoring a man with that much influence was dangerous. She'd heard stories, customers blacklisting entire restaurants over a single bad interaction. He could eviscerate her chances at future employment with one phone call. If she went, she might get answers. If she didn't, the consequences could still find her. She looked around her tiny apartment, peeling paint, mismatched furniture, the lingering smell of damp carpet. She had nothing left to lose. Maya grabbed her coat, slipped her phone into her pocket, and stepped outside. The cold air slapped her cheeks, waking her completely. The driver saw her instantly. He didn't ask for her name. He didn't offer small talk. He simply inclined his head in a respectful, almost formal nod. "Ms. Delgado," he said quietly. "Please." He opened the back door for her. Inside, the SUV was silent, warm, upholstered in smooth black leather. A faint scent of cedar hung in the air. For a moment, she hesitated on the threshold, feeling as if she were crossing into another world, one she didn't belong in. But she slid into the seat anyway. The door shut behind her with a soft thud, and the city noise cut away completely. No questions, no explanation, just motion. As the SUV pulled away from the curb and merged into traffic, gliding through the city like a shadow, Seattle passed by in muted blurs, gray streets, rain-specked windows, distant harbor cranes half swallowed by the mist. Maya sat stiffly, fingers knotted in her lap, watching the city drift further away. Every street made her more aware of how alone she was, how powerless, and yet, how strangely calm. Maybe the worst had already happened. Maybe losing her job was rock bottom, and whatever this was, couldn't take anything else from her. The SUV slowed in front of a towering building of steel and glass, one of the tallest in Seattle. The driver pulled into a private entrance beneath the overhang, shielding them from the rain. He stepped out and opened the rear door again. "Mr. Locke is expecting you," he said. Her legs felt unsteady as she stepped out. The marble floor gleamed beneath her feet. Gold accents lined the lobby. A security desk sat to the left, but no one stopped her. "Right this way," the driver said. He led her directly to a private elevator. No buttons, no shared access. Just a glossy steel panel and a keycard reader. He tapped a card once, and the doors opened soundlessly. Maya hesitated on the threshold. "That won't be necessary," he said, giving her a small, polite smile. "This elevator goes only to the 52nd floor. Only to him." She stepped inside. The doors closed, and then the elevator rose, fast, smooth, impossibly quiet. The glass walls revealed the skyline unfolding around her, the city falling away beneath her feet as she climbed higher and higher. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass, wide-eyed, tense, bracing for something she couldn't name. Her own voice whispered in her head, "Whatever he wants, you face it." One breath at a time, the elevator slowed, chimed softly, opened. The 52nd floor stretched out before her, an expanse of cool marble, dark wood, and floor-to-ceiling windows revealing the silvery curve of the bay. And at the far end of the room, hands braced on a massive wooden desk, eyes trained on the skyline, stood Adrian Locke. This time, he didn't look like a man glancing over a service worker. He looked like a man who had been waiting. Her pulse fluttered once, and she stepped out of the elevator, into whatever new phase of her life this was going to be. Maya stepped out of the elevator like she was entering another universe. The air felt different up here, cleaner, colder, carrying traces of cedar and something metallic that whispered of money and power. The entire floor was open, framed by glass walls that revealed Seattle's sweeping waterfront. Afternoon light glinted off the water, casting soft blue reflections across the polished wood floors. Adrian Locke didn't turn immediately. He stood at the window, hands in his pockets, shoulders tense as if he'd been holding that position for too long. "Maya Delgado," he finally said, his voice low but steady. "Thank you for coming." She stayed near the elevator, unsure how close she was supposed to walk. "You sent a car?" she said quietly. "I didn't think I had a choice." A faint shadow crossed his expression. He turned toward her fully, and in that moment, the memory of the restaurant flickered in his eyes, something like regret, something like reconsideration. "No," he admitted. "I suppose you didn't." He motioned to a chair across from his desk. "Please, sit." The desk was enormous, dark walnut, minimalistic, powerful in its simplicity. 2 folders lay open, one filled with documents in English, the other with pages covered in flowing Arabic script. She sat, pulse climbing. Adrian lowered himself into his seat, folded his hands, and began with something she did not expect. "I owe you an apology." She blinked. "I should not have spoken about you the way I did," he continued. "Not in English, not in Arabic, not ever." His jaw tightened. "That wasn't my best moment." Maya's fingers curled against her knees. She wanted to accept the apology. She also wanted to ignore it. She didn't know which one hurt more. "If the apology is all you needed," she said, "you didn't have to drag me here." "You're right," he said simply. "I didn't." Silence stretched between them, thin, fragile. Adrian took a slow breath. "There's something else. And it's not about the restaurant incident." He paused. "It's about a 3-month negotiation that's falling apart." Her brows furrowed. "Negotiation?" "With the Al Masri Group," he said. "They're one of the largest energy investors in the Middle East. We're trying to close a $1.8 billion deal." Maya stared at him. He tapped the folder of Arabic documents. "Their cultural advisors communicate through nuance, through idioms, through shifts in tone, and every translator we've used has botched it." He leaned back. "Badly." She swallowed slowly. "And you think this is something I can help with?" "I know you can," he said. "Yesterday you understood not just the words I said, but the meaning, the cadence, the socio-linguistic placement." A muscle ticked in his jaw. "My tutors speak Arabic with textbook precision. You speak it like a second skin." Her breath caught. He reached behind him, opened a drawer, and placed something on the table. A check. Not a regular check. A cashier's check. The number printed on it felt unreal. 900,000. Maya's breath stalled completely. What is this?" she whispered. "A signing bonus," Adrian said. "If you agree to work for me." Her eyes darted from the check to his face. "Work for you? How?" "As my linguistic and cultural advisor," he said. "Full-time for the duration of this negotiation. 3 months, minimum. You would sit in every meeting, review every document, translate not only language, but intention." She shook her head slowly. This can't be real." "You can call the bank," he said calmly. "It's already cleared." Her fingers trembled. "Why me?" "Because you saved yesterday's meeting in 10 seconds, he said. "Because you read between the lines, because you heard things even I didn't hear, and because you weren't afraid to correct me." Her breath shuddered. "And what if I say no?" He shrugged once. "Then you go back to Aurelia 28. The position is already arranged. Supervisor title. Better pay, better hours." She stared at him, stunned. "You called the restaurant?" "Yes," he said flatly. Greg was compliant. Of course Greg was compliant. Greg would fold into a paper crane if a billionaire frowned at him long enough. "So," Adrian said, "either you take the job back there, or you take the one here." She looked at the check again. 900,000. She'd never seen more than 2,000 in her bank account at one time. She could pay off her entire student loan. She could breathe for the first time since graduation. She could build a new life, but something inside her hesitated. She lifted her gaze. "If I take this," she said quietly, "I'm not going to be your assistant." Adrian didn't flinch. "Good, I don't need one. I'm not going to fetch coffee, or run errands, or be talked over. You won't be." "If I'm in that room," she said, voice strengthening, "my analysis matters. My interpretation matters. If I see something you don't ignore it." Adrian's eyes locked onto hers. "Maya," he said softly, "if you take this job, your word on language and culture becomes the only one that matters." Her chest tightened. "And you take me seriously? More than you know. And if I tell you something is wrong, something in tone, something subtle, you listen? Every time?" She exhaled shakily, shock slowly giving way to something steadier. Power, possibility, purpose. She wasn't sure yet. "What about the pressure?" she asked. "Is es zurückgeht? The stakes? A deal that big?" You won't be alone, he said. You'll have my team. And Liam. And me. His voice softened. But you'll be the one leading the cultural front. Maya pressed her fingertips to the edge of the desk, grounding herself. You really believe I can help you save this? A pause, a long one. Then, I believe, Adrian said, you might be the only one who can. Something inside her flickered, a spark left from the ashes of last night. Something that sounded suspiciously like hope. She reached for the check. Her hand hovered above it. I need one more thing. Adrian nodded. Name it. My title, she said. I choose it. And whatever it is, you respect it. A slow smile touched his mouth for the first time. Something real. Something almost human. Deal. Maya let out a shuddering breath. Then yes, she whispered. I'll take the job. Adrian leaned back slightly, a quiet exhale leaving him. Welcome to Locke Dynamics, Ms. Delgado. For the first time in 2 years, she felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Not because she was falling, but because, finally, she was rising. Maya had expected her new life to arrive slowly, like a sunrise. Instead, it came at her like a flood. By late afternoon, she received a brief message. Corporate housing assigned, driver en route. No greetings, no signature, just the efficient style of a world she was about to enter. The corporate apartment sat in a tower overlooking Elliott Bay. So close to the water, it felt like the whole city had tilted toward the waves. When the door opened, Maya froze. The place looked like a minimalist gallery. Pale walls, velvet gray couch, marble counters, and windows so wide they made the skyline look like a painting. A golden sunset pressed against the glass. On the dining table, someone had arranged her new tools like a ritual. A slim silver laptop, a company phone, a folder marked Locke Dynamics, Al-Masri Negotiations. Inside, a printed flight itinerary. Departing 6 a.m. Destination, Dubai. Maya rested her hand on the table, steadying herself. 2 nights ago, she was shaking water onto a billionaire's table. Now she was packing for a private jet. She took a breath, exhaled, and opened the laptop. Her inbox stared back at her. Dozens of emails between Locke Dynamics and the Al-Masri group stretching back months. She clicked into the earliest thread. Formal, polite, almost optimistic. But the tone changed as she scrolled forward. Something was off. She opened 2 windows, Arabic originals on the left, English translations on the right. Within 3 minutes, she felt her jaw tighten. The Arabic carried warmth, small courtesies, poetic idioms, gentle invitations for trust. But the English versions were stripped bare. Idioms were flattened, nuance missing, intentions distorted. A phrase meaning, "We should wait until the dust settles on the ridge," had been turned into, "We are delaying our decision indefinitely." Another, "Let us walk into the tent as one family," became, "Limited collaboration possible." She leaned forward. This wasn't a mistake. This was a pattern. Respect, translated as hesitation. Unity, translated as caution. Courtesy, translated as refusal. Each mistranslation nudged both sides an inch further apart. Now those inches had become a canyon. Her fingers moved faster. She made notes, short, sharp lines in her notebook. They're giving opportunities to show humility. Tone expects patience, not pressure. They're still trying, just discouraged. When she finally checked the time, it was 3:07 a.m. Her chest tightened. A team of highly paid consultants had missed all this, but she couldn't. She shut the laptop and lay on the couch for an hour, eyes wide open, heart running faster than the city lights outside. The private airfield was still blue with dawn when she arrived. The jet gleamed under floodlights like a sleek white arrow. Adrian and Liam were waiting at the foot of the stairs. "Morning," Liam said, surprised. "You're early." "I didn't sleep," Maya admitted. Adrian's eyes scanned her face. "Did you read everything?" "I did." "And?" She met his gaze without flinching. "You don't just have a translation problem," she said. "You have a respect problem." Liam blinked. Adrian's expression barely moved. "Go on," he said. "They've been speaking to your team with courtesy, subtlety, and trust. Your replies sound impatient, cold. You're answering kindness with pressure." Adrian's jaw flexed. "And what do you suggest we do?" "We start with an apology," Maya said. Liam stared at her like she'd spoken Martian. Adrian didn't blink. "You want me?" he said slowly, to open a billion-dollar negotiation by admitting fault? No, she replied softly. I want you to open it by admitting you didn't understand. There's a difference. The wind rushed across the runway. The engines hummed behind them. Adrian studied her like he was reassessing every assumption he'd ever made about her. And what would that apology sound like? She took a breath. We recognize that our previous representatives didn't give your words the cultural depth they deserved. We're here to listen fully and repair what was lost. She let the sentence settle between them. No excuses, she added. Just humility. The silence stretched, then Adrian's shoulders lowered, just a fraction. You're certain, he said. If you go in acting like you've been wronged, Maya answered, you'll lose the room before the first clause. Liam gave Adrian a cautious look. She hasn't been wrong yet. Adrian nodded once. Fine, we open with an apology. Liam exhaled as if he'd been holding his breath for an hour. And you deliver it, Adrian added. Maya froze. Me? You're the one who understands them, Adrian said. I need you to speak the way they speak. For a second, Maya felt the ghost of the girl who used to carry plates through a glass restaurant, the girl Greg dismissed, the girl Adrian offended. Then she lifted her chin. Understood, she said. The jet's interior looked like a moving boardroom. Cream leather seats, a wood table polished to a soft shine, low lights glowing along the ceiling. Once the jet leveled over the clouds, Maya opened her laptop. Documents spread across the table like pieces of a puzzle. Adrian sat across from her, his expression analytical, almost wary. Walk me through it, he said. She did. She pointed to idioms, to soft cues, to cultural signals embedded like threads in a tapestry. She showed how the Al-Masri messages changed tone over time, cooling as mistranslations escalated. They think you're frustrated with them, she said, and they're losing face. We need to give it back. Adrian watched her in silence for a long moment. Not dismissive, not annoyed, just listening. When she finished, he leaned back in his seat. You really see the whole picture, don't you? I see what they want you to see, Maya said, if you know how to listen. Adrian's eyes softened, just slightly. And you're sure an apology is the right opening move? Absolutely, he nodded once. Then that's how we'll begin. Maya lowered her gaze, grounding herself. She wasn't pouring water anymore. She was rewriting the first page of a negotiation worth nearly $2 billion. And for the first time, Adrian Locke wasn't looking at her like a waitress. He was looking at her like the one person in the room he couldn't afford to ignore. The boardroom in Dubai sat high above the marina, its walls made of glass and its table a single, gleaming stretch of desert-colored wood. Outside, the skyline shimmered in the late morning heat. Inside, the air felt 10 degrees colder, an atmosphere carved by pride, caution, and years of practiced diplomacy. Maya sat beside Adrian, hands folded calmly over her notebook, though her heart thudded hard enough that she wondered whether anyone could hear it. Across the table, the Al-Masri delegation took their seats. Their patriarch, Sheikh Farid Al-Masri, wore immaculate white robes and an expression somewhere between regal patience and quiet disappointment. His sons murmured to each other in Arabic. At the far end of their side sat Karim Haddad, their lead interpreter, mid-40s, perfect posture, and an expression that suggested he'd already decided he wouldn't need any help today. Adrian cleared his throat, preparing to speak. Maya gently touched the edge of his folder. "Allow me," she whispered. He nodded. Maya rose slightly from her chair, inclining her head toward the sheikh before she spoke. "Your Excellency," she began in formal Arabic, her tone measured and reverent. "With your permission, I would like to open on behalf of Locke Dynamics." Brows lifted, surprise flickered across the Al-Masri side. Even Karim's eyes narrowed a fraction. "You may speak," the sheikh replied. Maya centered her breath. "We have reviewed the full exchange of correspondence between our teams," she said, "and it is clear to us that our previous representatives did not give your words the honor and cultural depth they deserved." A shift rippled across the table. Soft, subtle, but unmistakable. Respect recognized is respect returned. "We regret," she continued, "that our impatience or lack of understanding caused strain. Today we are here to begin anew, with humility, with clarity, and with trust." The sheikh exchanged a look with his eldest son. For the first time, the tightness in his posture eased. Maya sat, Adrian leaned toward her slightly. That was impressive, he whispered. It was necessary, she murmured back. The negotiation began. Every time Adrian spoke, Maya softened the phrasing, not changing the meaning, but aligning it with cultural expectations. When Adrian said, "We need defined projections before moving forward," Maya translated it as, "We deeply value transparency and wish to understand how best to align our plans with your respected timeline." When the Sheikh's second son said in Arabic, "My father will not be hurried like a child," Kareem translated it to English as, "We cannot commit to the timeline." Maya politely interjected. "If I may," she said in Arabic, "the young master's meaning reflects not refusal, but the importance of honor and pacing. The timeline is possible, if approached as mutual responsibility." The Sheikh smiled faintly and nodded. Adrian gave Maya a discreet glance of gratitude. For the first hour, everything felt surprisingly smooth, as if the ice between the two sides was finally beginning to thaw, and that's exactly when it happened. A discussion began on the project's final structural clause, liability during regulatory delays. The intent was delicate. Both sides needed assurance without appearing to shift blame. The Sheikh leaned back, speaking to Kareem in a low, steady stream of Arabic. Maya listened carefully, recording the tone, the idioms, the underlying currents. The Sheikh's sons nodded at their father's phrasing. Something about it was firm, but not hostile. It sounded like a door still slightly open. Kareem turned to the Locke Dynamics side, cleared his throat, and began translating. "The Sheikh agrees to your liability clause," he said in English. "He simply requests a symbolic gesture, priority for local labor whenever feasible, nothing binding, only goodwill. A harmless condition, too harmless." Adrian's team murmured approval. Liam exhaled in relief, but Maya did not move. Her pen froze over the paper. Local labor. The phrase was too clean, too simplified, too polished. She replayed the Sheikh's original Arabic in her mind. He hadn't said local labor. He had said something else entirely, a specific contractor, a single entity, a term that carried weight. Maya lifted her gaze. Kareem was already glancing at her, quick, sharp, probing, and in that moment she understood. He knew she'd caught it. He was waiting to see if she would say anything. She lowered her eyes to mask her expression. Adrian leaned toward her. "Maya, is something wrong?" She straightened her shoulders. Then, as calmly as if asking for water, she spoke. "Your Excellency," she said in Arabic to the Sheikh, "with respect, may we request a brief moment to confer internally?" The Sheikh nodded graciously. Maya turned to Adrian, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need a pause. Now." Adrian immediately stood. "5 minutes, gentlemen." They stepped into the adjoining waiting room. The door closed behind them. Adrian's voice dropped. "What is it?" Maya's pulse hammered hard enough to hurt. Kareem didn't translate correctly. Liam blinked. "What do you mean?" He said it was just a goodwill gesture. "No," Maya said, forcing her voice steady. "The Sheikh mentioned a preferred subcontractor, not local labor, singular, not plural." She looked between them. "That's not goodwill. That's a contract worth millions. Someone stands to gain from it personally." Liam's face drained of color. "Are you saying—" "Yes," Maya whispered. "Kareem is inserting his own agenda. If we accept the condition as translated, we're agreeing to funnel a major contract to someone he's aligned with." Adrian went still. So still he looked carved from stone. "He's hijacking the negotiation," Maya said, "on both sides." Adrian exhaled slowly, the realization sinking in like ice. "And if we call him out?" he asked. "It will dishonor the Sheikh," Maya said, "and he'll walk away. So will Kareem, and this entire deal collapses." "Then what do we do?" Liam asked, panicked. Maya swallowed, her mind racing. "I have an idea," she said finally, "but you'll need to trust me and act angry with me, very angry." Adrian stared at her. "Why?" "Because Kareem expects me to stay silent," she said. "He thinks I'm just a polite addition to your team. If he believes you doubt me, he won't see the trap I'm about to set." She held Adrian's gaze. "Let me expose him without ever accusing him. Let him reveal himself." Adrian studied her face, searching for doubt. He found none. Finally, he nodded once. "All right," he said. "Do it." They returned to the boardroom. Maya took her seat. Kareem watched her carefully. She watched him back. The next move was hers, and it would determine not just the deal, but whether the truth survived the table. The moment Maya and Adrian walked back into the boardroom, she could feel the air shift. It wasn't loud. It wasn't obvious. But there was something brittle about the silence, like glass waiting for the right vibration to shatter. The sheikh and his sons sat in a dignified row at their end of the long, polished table. Their expressions were neutral, unreadable, but their eyes held a quiet curiosity. They sensed tension, but didn't yet know where it pointed. On the opposite side, Kareem Haddad sat comfortably, shoulders relaxed, the polished confidence of a man who believed he owned the room. He adjusted his cufflinks as if the negotiation were already settled in his favor. His gaze flicked to Maya, lingering for a split second, cool, dismissive, before returning to the sheikh. He thought he was untouchable. That made him vulnerable. Maya took her seat without lifting her eyes. She needed him to believe she'd been scolded, doubted, put back into a place beneath him. Adrian understood the signal perfectly. He remained standing, jaw tight, breath sharp. Then, with a controlled scrape across the marble floor, he dragged his chair closer and sat down with a hard thud, loud enough to draw attention, not loud enough to break decorum. He didn't look at Maya. He didn't have to. The performance began. "Before we continue," Adrian said in English, tone clipped, "I need clarity about something my advisor seems uncertain about." A ripple of interest moved across the Al-Masri side. The sheikh leaned slightly forward. One son raised an eyebrow, and Kareem smiled. A small, triumphant curl of the lips, the smile of a man who believes his ego has just been validated. Maya kept her head bowed, hands still on her notebook. Exactly as planned. Kareem spoke first, in the syrupy tone of someone indulging a misunderstanding. "Of course, Mr. Locke, there is no confusion. The sheikh's request is purely symbolic, a gesture of goodwill, local labor preference, only when feasible." He glanced at Maya, almost mockingly, then back to Adrian. "I assure you," he added, "your advisor is over-interpreting." Adrian exhaled loudly, shaking his head as though disappointed. "This is what I mean," he said, projecting irritation. "We can't keep delaying the negotiation over imagined nuances." The sheikh's eldest son frowned. The second son exchanged a look with their father. They were listening closely now. Maya waited for the room to settle. Then she looked up. Only a fraction, only enough to be respectful. "Your Excellency," she said in Arabic, softly, deferentially, "may I ask a brief scholarly question before we finalize this point?" Every head turned. This time, she didn't use the modern, graceful dialect she'd been speaking. This time, her words came wrapped in classical Arabic. Formal, elegant, the language of poets, scholars, and ancient treaties. A language not used lightly. The sheikh's eyes widened a little, not in offense, but in intrigue. "You may ask," he said. Maya turned her gaze to Kareem, calm, controlled, deadly precise. "While reviewing translation ethics," she said, "I came across a notable conference paper from 3 years ago. It warned of a tactic sometimes used to manipulate negotiations." Kareem froze. The sheikh leaned forward. "What tactic is this?" he asked. Maya didn't break eye contact with Kareem. It described how a translator might disguise a required subcontractor as a harmless reference to local labor, a linguistic sleight of hand used to insert personal profit into a negotiation. A son gasped briefly. Kareem's pulse visibly jumped in his neck. "The paper," Maya continued, "called this method a velvet dagger, hidden, elegant, and designed to strike without noise." Her voice stayed perfectly steady. "And the author of this paper was Mr. Kareem Haddad." Kareem inhaled sharply, too sharply. The sheikh turned, slowly, deliberately. "Is this true?" he asked. Kareem's lips parted, but only air came out at first. When he finally found his voice, it trembled. "Your Excellency, that paper was theoretical, merely an academic exercise." Maya interjected gently, but in the sheikh's own regional dialect, a level of respect and connection Kareem had never shown. "Your Excellency, just moments ago, he used this exact tactic. Your original request, your preferred subcontractor, was translated to Mr. Locke as local labor when possible, not an error, not a simplification." She tilted her head. "A technique, the same technique he described, down to the phrasing." The sheikh's face darkened. One of his sons stood half out of his chair. "You would smuggle your own interests into our agreement," the sheikh said, voice low and shaking with anger. "You would gamble with my honor, using my name?" "Your Excellency, please. She misunderstands," Karim stammered. "She understood perfectly," the sheikh snapped. He straightened to his full height, authority radiating from him like heat. "Guards!" The room held its breath. 2 security officers entered silently. Karim looked from Maya to the sheikh, panic cracking through his composure. "Your Excellency, please, I meant no—" "You meant to deceive us all," the sheikh said, each syllable a verdict. "You have no place at this table." Karim's remaining words crumbled as the guards took his arms. His final look at Maya was a mix of fury and disbelief. She met his gaze calmly. "You underestimated the wrong person," she said softly. The guards escorted him out. The door closed with a muted click. Silence followed, a heavy, cleansing silence, like a storm finally breaking. Then the sheikh turned to Maya and placed his hand over his heart. "Ms. Delgado," he said, "you have protected this negotiation more than any advisor, translator, or consultant I have worked with. Your understanding is deep. Your courage, rare." He gestured to the empty chair beside him. "From this moment," he said, "you will sit next to me. You will guide every word we share. I trust you completely." Maya rose slowly. She walked around the table with a composure she didn't fully feel yet. Adrian watched her, no longer shocked, no longer calculating. Something steadier, something older, respect. She sat beside the sheikh. And the entire room, Adrian, the sons, the legal teams, shifted their posture subtly around her. She was no longer a participant. She was the axis. The negotiation resumed. Every sentence from the Locke side passed through Maya's filter of diplomacy and cultural understanding. Every response from the sheikh was translated with nuance and precision. What had been a frozen table thawed into cooperation. Hours later, everyone in the room knew the truth. A woman once dismissed as just a server had dismantled a deception and rebuilt trust between 2 worlds, using nothing but language. The final signatures fell onto the contract like the last notes of a long, complicated symphony, finally resolving into harmony. The sheikh pressed his seal to the page, then looked up at Adrian and Maya with a smile that felt as warm as the Dubai sun flooding the room. "It is done," he said. The room exhaled as though everyone had been holding their breath for days. Lawyers exchanged relieved nods, advisors loosened their ties. Liam slumped back in his chair, whispering, "Thank God," under his breath. But the sheikh wasn't looking at any of them. He was looking at Maya. "You were the bridge we needed," he said in Arabic. "You carry language as if you were born to negotiate between worlds." His eldest son added, "You have a gift, Ms. Delgado, not only in speech, but in understanding." And the youngest, the one who had been the most skeptical, offered her a respectful bow. "In another life," he said, "you would have been a diplomat." Maya felt heat rise behind her eyes, the kind that came from gratitude too large to contain. "Thank you, Your Excellency," she replied quietly. "This was an honor." When the meeting ended and the parties shook hands, Adrian waited until the crowd dispersed before turning to her. "You did it," he said softly. "No," Maya said, "we did it." But the way he looked at her said he didn't believe that for a second. He knew exactly who had saved the deal. On the private jet home, the world below disappearing into blue and gold, Maya sat by the window with a file of loose documents she wasn't really reading. Her mind replayed everything. Every moment since that drop of water hit a table in Seattle. She expected triumph to feel loud. It didn't. It felt quiet, humble, like the first deep breath after years of not realizing she'd been holding her lungs tight. Adrian watched her from across the aisle, something thoughtful, almost gentle, settling into his expression. "You all right?" he asked. "Besiegt?" She nodded. "Just processing." "You earned that," he replied. "Take your time." Seattle greeted her with its usual misty grayness, but for once, Maya didn't feel swallowed by it. She felt lifted. She dropped her luggage in her new corporate apartment, then pulled out her old laptop, the one with cracked plastic near the hinge, and stickers from her undergraduate dorm peeling at the edges. Her hands shook. She logged into her student loan portal. The number blinked on the screen, the total she had stared at for years. $178,142.67. A number she never thought she would see disappear. She clicked Pay in Full. The confirmation message popped up with a cheerful chime. Congratulations, your loan is paid off. For a moment, she simply stared. Then the tears came, quiet, slow, and warm. Not bitter, not scared, not exhausted, free. She didn't know how long she sat on the floor, hands covering her face, shoulders trembling. All she knew was that this time, the tears tasted like sunlight. 3 days later, she walked into the Locke Dynamics Tower wearing one of the tailored suits provided before the Dubai trip. Navy blue, minimalist, strong lines. She no longer felt like she was dressing as someone else. She felt like she finally matched her reflection. Adrian's office overlooked the bay, afternoon light washing the room in gold. He stood when she entered. There she is, he said, smiling, an expression that still looked rare on him, like something he hadn't known how to use for years. Congratulations on your freedom. Thank you, Maya replied. It doesn't feel real yet. It will, he said, and I intend to make sure the reality only gets better. He motioned for her to sit. She did. What I'm about to offer you, he said, is not charity, and it's not gratitude. It's necessity. He slid a folder across the desk. Locke Global Cultural Strategy Division, Founding Partner Agreement. Maya blinked. Founding partner? Yes. Adrian folded his hands. You proved something in Dubai, something I haven't seen in my entire career. You don't just translate languages. You translate intent, culture, trust. You prevented a disaster that would have set us back a decade. She stared at the document, pulse quickening. I don't need an interpreter, Adrian continued. I need a strategist, someone who sees beyond the literal text, someone who understands how people think, not just what they say. I want to build a new division around that ability. Maya swallowed. And you want me to run it? No, Adrian said. I want you to own it. She looked up sharply. He nodded. You'd receive partnership status, a share of profits from every international deal, full authority over cultural advisement, total independence. You'd build this from the ground up, and you'd do it with my full backing. Maya tried to speak, but couldn't. She felt the floor tilt under her. Her entire life had been spent in rooms where she served others. Now she was being handed a room that would be hers. There's only one thing I ask, Adrian added softly. Say yes. She closed the folder slowly, hands trembling. I will, she said, on one condition. Adrian raised an eyebrow. Name it. A scholarship fund. He blinked. For what? For students who love language but don't have the means to pursue it. A full-ride scholarship at UCLA. For kids like me who were told their passion wasn't practical. Her voice softened. I want to make sure the next person with this gift doesn't end up pouring water to survive. Adrian's answer came instantly. Done. No hesitation, she asked. No hesitation, he repeated. If we're building a future, it should lift people, not just profit. A warmth spread through her chest. She extended her hand. He took it. The handshake felt nothing like the one in Dubai. That one had been business. This one felt like purpose, like two people choosing to build something that wasn't just lucrative, but meaningful. You're going to change this company, Adrian said quietly, and you're going to change the world for some student who thinks their dream is too expensive. Maya smiled. Then we both win. Outside the window, the Seattle Bay glowed under a violet sunset. The waves caught the light like scattered shards of amethyst. For the first time in years, Maya felt entirely, undeniably aligned with her own life. She wasn't a waitress anymore. She wasn't debt. She wasn't invisible. She was a founder, a strategist, a woman building a legacy, and she had only just begun.